Isaiah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Lots of changes going into the new year. I think once you get to November, it's hard to hide from the fact that your year's closing out. And then you start to think about where you are and what comes next.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, it's the holidays are very distracting, but I think when you're business owner, career focused, you start to think about how you're wrapping up that year.
Yeah.
One thing we always talk about with people that are trying to get hired is December is a big month for companies spending their budgets. I remember when I first learned this, when I had one of my first jobs, like they were buying, this one company I worked for wanted to buy a bunch of instruments at the end of December. And there's all these kind of reasons, right? Because like there's like tax reasons if they spend it, right? They can lower their tax burden, but also that particular department wanted to get their budget renewed.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, won't they give you more money for the next year? They're like, no, you have to
No.
spend your budget.
Yeah, that was my big
Yeah.
thing when I was selling AutoCAD, Autodesk technology solutions. I would say, like, what do you have left in your budget? Let's spend it because you want more next year. You don't want the company taking it away. Even when I had my own department back when I worked in Chicago for CCC, it was the same thing. I remember, like, let's spend. Let's spend.
Right. What do you start to think about towards the end of the year?
I think for me right now, with everything that is going on right now, I'm really thinking about my own thought energy. I am thinking about my thought energy and what am I directing my thought towards? Because there is so much going on in the world. You turn on the TV, there's an awful lot of squawking. There is a lot of distractions. There's so much going on, right?
Sure.
And for me right now, I am trying desperately to direct my thought energy to my business, to my family, to my own growth and development. And I'm trying to keep everything else at bay. I mentioned earlier when I was selling technology solutions, the Autodesk solutions, I got into this sales role. And even though I had sales experience, I was still pretty wet behind the ears. And I remember reading The Little Red Book of Sales by Jeffrey Gitomer.
Yeah.
And he had said, if you want to be a success, turn off your television, turn off the news,
Man.
stop reading newspapers,
Sure.
focus in. And I keep thinking about that right now. So the answer to your question is, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about the end of the year. I'm thinking about how can we finish strong, but how can we really look to see, because everything's changing. Everything has changed. How can we remain, viable? How can we become more competitive? How can we do better? How can we level up? That's what I'm thinking about right now. And I'm trying desperately not to think about who has been elected, what each side is thinking, and what they are saying. And is the end of the world here, or is it the beginning of a new whatever? It doesn't matter. We're all going to wake up. We still have to go to work. And we still have to keep driving forward. Long answer to a short question.
The amazing thing for me is that I come back to as you get older and older is how powerful controlling your focus is and using logic. One thing I like to do at the end of the year is I listen to the audio book of The Fountainhead towards the end of the year. And I do it because of what you just said, because it zeroes in and it has a great main character that arguably is the embodiment of that, just logic and focus. Because you can get, I think in sales, I'm a big proponent of sales, and I think it's really the transferable skill that's going to survive AI between humans. But it can be really easy to get away from logic, and you're trying to influence people with bells and whistles or whatever. But if you come back to logic in your own life for goal setting, if you come back to logic for any goal you're trying to achieve, A is A. There's a right and there's a wrong. Like something works, it's science, it's math, this is what it is. And so I think there's an anchor in that for people. So if you're trying to achieve a goal for any reason, it's easy to become a mystic. It's easy to be like, well, things just aren't going my way. Right? Or everything else in the universe is going this way. But if you come back to, there's actually a process that works. And if you fill in those gaps by connecting the logical dots, you will get there. And if you can control your focus, you're able to do that. If you're diffused focus everywhere, you can't come in on, I want to go here, but I'm here. And people will evade reality.
Yeah.
Lesson from reading The Fountainhead or any Ayn Rand books was how amazing we are, myself included, at creating a fog around the things we don't want to think about in our head, like the actual things that matter. Like we have a problem and we'll put a fog around it, no different than somebody who has a 5-page essay due in college, and they'll distract themselves with everything in the world until those last 3 hours to do it. You're just evading reality, right? Like in reality, you can evade reality, but you can't evade the consequences of evading reality. And so those things are what come up for me towards the end of the year, and what come up for me when I'm at my lowest points. I'm like, well, wait a sec. Are you controlling your focus? And are you being logical?
I love The Fountainhead. You know that. You and I have bonded over our love of that book. And, I think I need to read it again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
The one thing that I kept thinking of that one scene where Tui to Rourke, he says, Mr. Rourke, tell me what you think about me. Everything that I've done to you, everything that I've put you through, I want you to tell me exactly what you think about me right now. Feel free, and what does Howard say? Howard says,
I don't think of you.
I don't think of you at all.
Yeah. Which has been reused multiple times, by the way. Like that line was reused in a famous scene in Mad Men, the TV show, because it's such a great line. And so we think we have to get in. I also think that book points out there are forces against you. And of course, I love that book because Tui's like the embodiment of like the stuffy professor in academia who just gaslights everyone. And you take these individual students that have so much promise, which for me are these PhDs, and convinces them that that's bad, you don't produce.
Yeah.
So I think if in life, like there are forces out there like that, but you can easily overcome them just by not thinking about them and continuing on your path.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think of that which is out there that wants to control you, that wants to keep you weak, that wants to keep you down, what are they going to do? They are going to keep you in a state of fear and anxiety and dread. That is what's going to keep you distracted.
Yeah,
right?
True.
And so it's what are you feeding yourself? Where is your thought energy directed to? I saw on Instagram, of which I really think I need to get off of Instagram.
Okay.
It's got so much good stuff, but ultimately I'm still just swiping and I feel good, like I'm getting better, but am I really? No, but at any rate, someone did post something that I thought was fabulous. And this was a few weeks back, and the guy said, you're worried about the election, you're worried about the government, you're worried about the future of the country. He said, rather than outsource these thoughts and guidance and leadership, focus in on your sphere, focus in on your family, focus in on your work, your business, your job, whatever it is, focus in hard. All of that fear and worry and dread and anxiety and all of that other stuff that's it's there. Just say, I'm going to focus inward. I'm going to focus in on my sphere. This is what I can control. I can't control anything else. I'm just one small peon in all of this. So let me focus in on what I can control. And he said, if you do that, it doesn't matter who's elected, who controls what, because you are in control and you're doing fine.
I agree. And I would say too, being a strong enough person also you still have to put your head up and know the trends. Like going back to Howard Rourke, his big thing was he was a modernist in terms of architecture and not in a bubble of the past, right? They talk about how everybody was still doing like Roman style buildings, right? Even as things went from wood to plaster to steel, they still did the same kind of trusses that were in wood, even though steel could handle so much more because they were too much in a bubble. So I think you also have to look up and ride different waves. Like for some people, and I see a lot of business owners doing this, like I'm going to stay right here because it's what I've known, ignoring AI and the takeover. And now they're out of business because I know people that have had, like, for example, writing businesses shut down because they just stayed in this bubble. They didn't start using AI. They didn't realize that all of their contracts were going to be cut because those companies were going to use AI, and they're gone. They're Blockbuster. Right. So I think so you got to focus in logic, but you got to intake data from the world, like just to be extra clear. And so you'll never get away from like the crowd that's just like, I'm going to get off LinkedIn, Instagram. No solution, because you have to have a strong enough mind to go to LinkedIn and use it for your purposes, You have to have a strong enough mind to go to Instagram, use it for your, you have to have a strong enough mind to see what's happening politically, what shifts, what new laws are out there, what new things are down the pipeline. Mm-hmm. Get involved if you have to, and then be able to withdraw.
Yeah. That, I think what you just said is so important, right? Because that is the issue. It's so easy to turn on that spigot and, all of it comes in and you're soaking wet. You're across the room. This was always my problem with what Jeffrey Gitomer had said, which was like, turn it off. And I believe it. You need to have the blinders on. You need to stay focused. You can't allow yourself to get distracted. But at the same time, we need to know what's coming down the pike. So how do you balance that? How can you stay in control, especially when you look at social media? I mean, you look at it's a freaking casino. Every aspect has been designed to pull you in. I mean, everything is designed to distract you and to suck you in and to never release you. So like, it's hard. How? I don't know if there is really any, other than being like really disciplined and being aware of this, like how else, how do you do it?
Two things. I'm going to come back to the book again, right? You got to go from being just a consumer to a creator. And I'm sure you remember the moment when you did. I remember the moment I stopped using social just for consumption and I started creating on it. You can't say I'm not going to create because there's so much crap out there. You have to I think it's our moral obligation. The one thing I love about those books is Ayn Rand turned morality into, if something's productive or works well, it's moral. Like the best example that I've heard of explaining her philosophy was like, if this chair is made correctly and lasts longer, holds up people, does its purpose better, it's a more moral chair than a chair that doesn't. A lot of people have a hard time with that because a lot of people think you should race to need instead of ability. Yeah. So that was an eye-opener for me because now it is my moral obligation to produce good content that helps people and takes their attention away from other addictive stuff that is bad, right? Whether that's gambling or porn or whatever it is online that they can find. And seriously, like, it's a moral obligation, I think, for you, myself, everyone that can produce good content to do that. And so that makes it way easier than just, I got to opt in and out or whatever. Like, because morality is morality exists. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a question of whether or not morality exists. Most people just have a question of what's the right morality. I think that's like C.S. Lewis who said that. Mm-hmm. Like, so morality is this thing that's entwined in us. And so if you can be like, well, if it's right and it's good and you're helping people, so if your value is being productive, if your value is getting into a good career, we can make that our moral obligation. And it's easier to do it then because belief is so powerful. It makes it easier because now your focus, it's so much easier to put your focus on something else and to channel it than it is to just stop it. Right. So if you're like, I got to stop putting my focus on this way hard, where a focus goes, energy flows. That's one of the quotes of today, right? Yeah. So if you put all your focus, instead of being like, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to do this as hard as I can. This is my mission. I got this huge goal. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to influence as many people positively as I can. Yeah. Problem, you'll starve your vices because you're you change your obsession because people are obsessive. You can't turn obsessive energy off. You just have to channel it.
I love the idea of saying, let's stay on these platforms, but stay on with a different value, right? It's rather than consuming, it's creating. It's being there, being part of it, but being part of it in a different way. I think that's really very powerful. There's something else that you said that really resonated with me. The chair concept, like if it's a well-made chair, if it's designed and it's going to last, like it's a more moral chair. I've never thought of it like that, but I feel this all the time, Isaiah. Yeah. I buy something and it doesn't last. It's not made well. I never really gave it that thought of that there is this, it's beyond just, here's something that's cheap, but here's something that was made with intention. It was made with excellence. And I do think people see it and they value it. And I feel like we're missing it anymore. I don't feel like a lot of things haven't.
It's true. And it's easy when it's a chair, but when you turn to a person, people get wild, right? Because I can say this person does their job better. They're a more moral person than this person who does their job worse. And that's what people have a problem with. But I think that's absolutely true. If you have a person who gives their best ability and does a better job, that is morally just. And what a lot of societies tried to do, and this is what a lot of those books, the Fountainhead included, are about, is by doing a worse job, they want to equate they're both morally, and they want to go beyond that, but seeing, not just saying that they're both morally equal, but by saying the person who does a worse job because they did a worse job, which means they need more help, they're actually more moral. And so it's really, if you're going to chase need versus ability, that's what it comes down to. So what gets rewarded? If you reward, that's what all those books are about. If you reward need over ability, it's a race to the bottom pretty quick, because then everybody tries to be the person that's in the need. Everybody tries to be the most offended. Everybody tries to be the loudest, which is the state of social media. But then it lifts up everything from society. I mean, that's what Howard Rourke is, the person with the best ability.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh,
What a deep for a Wednesday. But it's good to see you, Donna. Thank you.
thank you. I'll see you next week.
Bye.